Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wannabe Entrepreneur, the podcast about what's really like to bootstrap a company. And today I'm here with Fed. Hey Fed, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tiago. Appreciate you having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Fed is a part-time indie maker, and you probably know him from Twitter. He has built Gummy Search, a great product to find communities on Reddit, and of course the Hive Index, the I guess one of the biggest directories of communities in the internet, and of course it also includes the wannabe entrepreneur space. So today we'll be speaking about his path, his journey into indie hacking, his background, how he found entrepreneurship, and how he's building his products. Is has a very interesting approach in the way he builds his products, and I'm super curious to know more about that. And as well, of course, to speak about communities because Fed also works in this scope, the same scope in the community business, let's say, but in the different perspective, right? It lists these communities, and you have seen a lot of them. So I'm sure that this will bring a lot of interesting conversations here and a lot of cool topics to discuss. So before we start, Fed, I would love to ask you to give a little introduction about yourself to the listeners. Who is Fed?
I'm an indie hacker for about a year and a half now. I currently have two bootstrapped products of my own, the Hive Index, which is a directory of online communities, and Gummy Search, which is an audience research tool for Reddit. I also do part-time consulting as a fractional CTO for early stage startups while my own products are taking off. And for the past year and a half, I've actually been traveling the world with my wife and our cat. So really enjoying the freedom that the indie hacker lifestyle allows.
Super cool. So, what were you before becoming an indie hacker?
Well, I worked for a startup. I was the first engineer at an early stage startup in New York City, and I joined as the fourth employee, and I worked there for 6 years. The company grew to 150 people, and it was awesome. And I had such a wonderful time at that company, and I learned so much. I learned a lot of the technical skills that I use in my current work. Uh, but I did miss building early stage products. I had a failed startup of my own before joining this company and working there for 6 years. And when a company reaches 150 people, the kinds of challenges that you work on, they simply change. You work with you work with people, and it's I love working with people. I enjoy managing, but a big part of me really missed just building early stage products. And so um, about a year and a half in, uh, decided to try to pursue those passions again.
But it must have been a very interesting challenge as well for you, right? Like being one of the first engineers in a startup and then seeing it grow until it reached 150 employees must be really exciting, no?
It was, yeah, absolutely. And we built some awesome products. Our company went international, and I met some really amazing people through that process. But what I did, notice about the last couple of years working there is I wasn't really, building new products, and that's something that I've
Right.
just always associated myself with. I'm a maker. I'm a creator. I enjoy I enjoy the process of coming up with something and building it, launching it, showing it to the world.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was missing from my life a little bit.
Since when did you know that you were a maker? And the reason why I ask this is not a profession or a path that is well recognized, right? So when you're trying to early on trying to find a profession, you can be a software engineer, a doctor, whatever. No one really tells you that you can become a
Hmm.
maker, right? But we know that we are, and it makes sense now for me as well. Now that I meet all the other makers, yeah, this is what I've been all my life.
Hmm.
What about you? Like, since when did you realize that you're like, I want to be a maker. I want to create things.
Yeah, that's a good question. And maybe parts of the maker philosophy like might come out in my childhood or me growing up, but I think that the first concrete times that come to mind are probably when I was in university. I studied mechanical engineering when I
Okay.
was in school, and I found myself really drawn to the engineering lab and design lab, where I would just go in. I would go in there, on the weekends and nights, and I would just use the CNC mills, the 3D printers, the laser cutters, and I would just make
Cool.
stuff. My senior year, I decided to, instead of taking another class, I applied to build a motorized longboard. That was my project. I took a longboard, a big skateboard, put a big
Yeah.
motor on it,
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, it was really cool and it was super fun. And I think that I really just realized that instead of taking the traditional route with my studies, I would rather just be in the lab and try to come up with things. And after graduating, I realized how lucky I was to have access to the university machine lab to make my hardware products. It's a little trickier to do it after graduating, but that's when I found the world of software, where really all that you need is your computer. You have the internet, which will teach you to make anything that you want, and it's so much of a quicker cycle to build something to show the world. And so I've been making software for the past 10 years and haven't looked back.
So would you say that you found the passion for coding not because you particularly loved coding, but more because you loved the possibility of making things, of transforming ideas into an actual product only using your laptop?
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, I would agree. I think that there's something amazing of taking something from a concept, an idea, and making it happen, creating it, showing it to your friends, getting feedback on it. I think it's a wonderful thing,
Yeah,
and especially when you can build something that helps other people, that's incredibly rewarding.
yeah. Because it was exactly the same for me. When I did the electric engineering, and actually I had a lot of fun in the last, also in my masters. So that's like 3 years, kind of bachelor's and then masters. And in my masters, it was kind of robotics, and I had a lot of cool projects around robotics. And I told to myself, okay, I want to do this uh, when I graduate because this is really amazing. But yeah, as you said, it's super hard to get access to the hardware, and the laptop allows you, like, it's that's our whole life. Like, we are building our products with this tiny thing here that we can carry in our backpack. That's absolutely crazy. We like to build stuff, but we also like to be ourselves building it, right? So even you worked in a startup and you liked it at first because you felt that you were crucial to it, but then it started growing and you realized, okay, now I'm not building anymore. Is it also kind of egoistic thing that we want to be the ones making it?
I think some people that have an entrepreneurial spirit, they are a bit restless in terms of the challenges they take on, and they always want to grow in certain ways and to keep on creating. And so I think I'm not the only one in the indie hacker world that might feel confined from a certain job where you're not fully in control over what you're working on, what you're building, and the success of the product. So personally, I like the accountability of being accountable to myself and to my users, my customers, and I think that's a powerful thing to
Yeah,
to drive you forward and to make good products.
yeah, definitely, totally agree. You told us that you also had a startup before that. So after college,
Hmm.
did you try to start your own thing?
Yeah, I did. I started a company with two of my friends from college. It was in the recruiting space, and to be honest, this actually started from our own experience. We realized that it was not easy to get a job, even after coming from a really good university. We found that um, there were certain career paths like consulting, investment banking, where there were all these paths to finding a job. But for some of the things that we wanted to do, it wasn't so easy. And so we made a tool to help connect people with jobs, essentially through mutual relationships, through their friends. Um, Eventually, we realized that what we were building is a three-sided marketplace, and even two-sided marketplaces are
Yeah.
hard. So the three-sided marketplace, it was crazy, and it didn't quite work. We had a fun pivot at the end where we decided, okay, let's just focus on one user type, and that's the job seeker. That's who we really empathize with. And so we built essentially a reverse applicant tracking system. It's a tool for job seekers to organize their job search.
Interesting.
But unfortunately, by that time, we had already run out of money and we were pretty beat up from
Yeah.
from the startup roller coaster. So uh, everyone went and found their own jobs.
For how long were you doing that?
This was about a year,
A year.
and it was a pretty crazy year because uh, my co-founders and I, we all lived together, and we also moved across different countries. We lived in Berlin for a couple of months for the summer to initially incubate the
Right.
idea, and we were like moving every single month, and then we moved back to the States. We were moving every single month, and imagine having your startup and everyone just works from the house, and every couple of weeks you need to find a new place to live. So it was a pretty wild time in our journey. There were certain things that I would change, and have changed since
Yeah.
learning from that
But why did
experience.
you have to move so often?
That's a good question. We probably didn't have to do it that way. I think that we always had like a couple of months of runway left, and so we weren't sure what our future was going to be, whether our startup was going to be around, where we were able to live. One of my co-founders, he had a visa he had to deal with, and so we were always just kind of extending it, getting a little bit of angel funding and extending our runway by like 1 or 2 months, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but now I realize how it's so difficult to have such short goals, and it's not a very healthy environment to build a company in. Whereas I think, on the other hand, the indie hacker mindset, where you are not just crafting a business, you're crafting a lifestyle in certain ways. And I don't know about everyone else, but for me, my time scale now is years. I'm ready to basically let my current projects, grow over the next couple of years, and I'm not worried about running out of money and having to shut the business down. I'm in it for the long run, and I
Yeah.
recognize that it's an investment that takes a while. And yeah, so I guess I would say it's a different kind of mindset that I have now than my first startup
So you
experience.
don't have the pressure to make ends meet with your products, at least in a short term.
Yeah, I think that comes from a couple of things. One is what I mentioned about doing consulting work in order to sustain, my life, and I think having some sort of income and not
Right.
purely
Yeah.
being dependent on the money that you get from angel investors. I think that makes a big difference. Also, the reason that I chose to go down this path after working for 6 years at this tech company was so that I can give another shot and give it a good shot. And so
Yeah.
during those times that I was working for my growing startup, I saved money. I made sure that when I did leave, that I had a couple years where I could really, prove out what I can build, and give it the time that it needs to mature.
Right. 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 And to be honest, out of college, starting a startup with the two friends, I mean, there's a there's a if I think about when my first projects out of college as well, I knew nothing, right? And you just mentioned that,
Yeah.
like, I think all of us tried to build this B2C crazy platform, the new Facebook kind of
Mm-hmm.
platform, and then we quickly realized that it's actually harder than it is, right? That we have seen like Twitter, we have seen Facebook, the social network movie, and we think, okay, this is cool. I mean, we can change the world and become millionaires, but what we don't realize is how hard it is to create a platform that needs to create value. So it's like the chicken and the egg, right? Like, you need users to create
Mm-hmm.
value, or companies to create values for the job seekers, and vice versa. I guess now, when you look back, what are like the biggest mistakes that you can point out and say, okay, these were huge mistakes that we did in that first year trying to build our startup?
And I've thought about it a lot. When you invest a year of your life into something and then you shut it down, you
Yeah.
really go through
Yeah.
a serious reflection period. And I have boiled it down to three things. Number one is marketplaces are hard, especially three-sided marketplaces. So that was the idea that we pursued early
So
on.
which were the three elements?
So it was essentially a social recruiting platform. So there was someone that was looking for a job,
Yeah.
there was the company that's offering the job,
Yeah.
and then there's the middleman, your friend that would help refer you to this job.
Oh, okay, got it.
And in order for what we were
Wow,
pursuing
yeah.
to work,
Super
all three
hard.
sides needed to work out, which is tricky. Yeah. So that's number one. Number two is also what I mentioned, the just having the runway, having the
Yeah.
runway, and knowing that you can make long-term decisions. I felt like we were always fundraising for small angel checks throughout that process, and it distracted from what really mattered, which was growing a sustainable business.
Yeah.
So that's a big learning that I had is if you're pursuing a startup, get ready to go in for the long run and make sure that you're comfortable. Make sure that you're not just working 16-hour days every single day, locked up in a house with your co-founders, because that's not sustainable. There was one moment where I realized that, because we worked where we lived, and I realized, hey, I haven't left the house. I haven't gone outside in 3 days. That's a problem. Now I live a very different lifestyle, and
Yeah.
and I think it's something that's much better for long term.
Definitely the mindset is different because you have a way to pay your bills, right? Like but for me, I was just telling you we're speaking off record about Lisbon and how Lisbon is becoming the city of indie makers, and you asked me like if I noticed that, and I said no because I'm mostly at my house. um so I still feel that a little bit, even though I'm an indie maker, because I'm a full-time indie maker, and I have a short runway and I'm trying to make it, right? I'm trying to make so that I don't need an extra job. So I think more than like being a difference between a startup or you just need money. You just need money to live, and if you don't have an extra income source, I guess it's hard not to stress about it and focus a lot on it, right?
It is. I agree, and that's one of the reasons that I do talk to some indie makers about doing what I'm doing, which is some part-time consulting
Yeah,
on the side. I think that it eases up a lot of stress. And if you think about it, the indie maker community, these are some of the most talented people out there. They're builders, they're coders, they're marketers. They do all the jobs. These are very, very employable people, even if it's not for 40 hours a week. And I do think that it's going to become even more and more accepted that someone might have a part-time job, a part-time, co-founder position, a consulting business while they uh, have their own bootstrap products, and give them the time that it takes to mature.
let's talk about that side job that you have, because I find that really interesting. And a lot of the full time makers that I have in the WB space, they have the same problem. They want to be a little bit more relaxed. They want to have an extra source of income, but they still are 100% focused in their projects. So it's really hard for them to find a job that only takes them 1 day or 2 days per week instead of the full week. So can you describe a little bit what you're able to find?
Yeah, so I currently consult for two startups as a fractional CTO, and the idea is that I help them build out their early products, help them get to product market fit, and then when the time is right, help hire the full-time team that will replace me. Usually, this happens after a significant source of funding, after building out the MVP and showing that there are customers. And so both of these two companies that I work with right now, they have come through my personal network, from some from people that I met in my just in my life, some from work, from that company that I worked at for 6 years. And this agreement of being a part-time CTO and what that means for both of us is something that's it was very important to determine that up front, to talk about it, and everyone is on the same page as to what the goals
Yeah.
are. And so far, it's been going great. And I'm speaking a little bit for the other companies, but I'm getting an indication that they really appreciate this as well. And for the indie makers that might be considering something like this, I find that it's a nice way to make a little income. You're not going to be making the income from your full-time job, but that might be a good thing. You still have a fire under your ass, because you're making half a salary,
Right. Right.
but you also have 20 hours, 20 to 40 hours a week to pursue your own products. And then when the time is right, you can scale back your consulting time. You can figure out a way to basically transition it seamlessly to your own projects. So that's kind of the idea. And I've met some other indie makers that do the same thing with their consulting work.
Yeah, me too. The first time I heard about it was actually from Anthony from Indie Worldwide. He told
Yeah.
me about it, and I was like, okay, this definitely sounds like a great job for an indie maker, right? Because you don't, I don't know, do you actually do any coding, or is mostly like
Yes, I do. I do. Yeah.
okay? So it's also it's not only CTO, it's a hands-on CTO, right?
It's both, but it depends on what's needed by that company. And both the companies I work with, they're different. One of them I don't do any coding at all whatsoever at this point, but that's because it's a little bit later stage. I've hired the team, and now it's much more of an advisory role.
So in the company where you actually code, what do you do? Like, are you just part of their development team? Do you just build features? What are the roles there?
I am the development team.
Okay, you are the okay, got it. And in the other one, you'd manage their team then.
Not manage. I think that a part-time manager might be a little bit tough, but it's more along the lines of for that company, I built out the initial product. We launched it. We got the first 1,000 customers. The company raised a significant amount of funding, and that allowed for us to hire a engineer, data scientist, product manager. I helped onboard them, train them. Now they're building out the company, taking it to the next level. And I check in as an advisor with the tech team and then with the founders every once in a while. So it's much less involved now than it was in the beginning stages when we were actually building out the product.
Okay, really. Do you have any equity on the company?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, as an advisor. Yeah.
It somehow seems that you are like a freelancer, a part-time employee to this company, if you especially if you also do coding. But yet the nomenclature fractional CTO sounds much cooler, right? I mean, no, I'm the fractional CTO.
It's a cool title.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit different than purely freelancing, because I think that a lot of the decisions around the kind of team that you create, the strategy for building out the architecture, for integrating other software, for developing the team, I think that it's a little bit more than just coding.
Yeah.
But yes, it is essentially freelancing with a little bit of a
Yeah.
twist. But I like it. I find that it's nice because my goal right now is to work on what I want with who I want whenever I want, and I think that this ability to work with cool companies, I learn from them. I learn about these new industries.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
make connections, and so it's quite powerful. And so far, all of the companies that I work with have been through word of mouth of other people just hearing that I do this, and so it's been pretty fun, and it's
Yeah.
yeah, I've enjoyed it.
No, and what you just mentioned, you learn about other companies, you learn about the problems that other companies have, and that's crucial for an entrepreneur because then you can build a SaaS or software to fix those problems, and you already have companies to pitch them to. So I totally agree. So how is your schedule actually? Do you have like, okay, 2 days per week you work on these companies and the other 3 you work on your projects, or is like a little bit mixed?
Yeah, it's more of what you say. I split the days. I've tried a couple of different things, but what I realize is that I only want to focus on one company in one given day, because I've
Got
definitely
it.
had days where I realized, hey, I'm working at 4 different companies today, and that's hard to maintain. And as I mentioned, I'm in it for the long run, and so I need to do the things that are sustainable. And what I found works for me is to split up my week in a way where I can give 100% to whatever the task at hand is, and then I switch to another project of mine, another company, and I actually find that this makes me more efficient
Okay.
because I can use the learnings from other products that I'm working on and apply them to new projects, apply them to my own projects, and having that ability to switch. And it's almost like a second weekend. If I work on something on Tuesday and I'm working on something else on Wednesday, it's almost like a little reset
Interesting.
to switch to another project and kind of come at it with the intensity that it deserves.
But how can you disconnect from your own projects? Because if it was me, there's always things that you have to do. I don't know, people sending you messages,
Yes.
emails, a little bug, or some crash that is happening. Even your brain is still like, okay, having new ideas. Let's say you're building or you're trying to solve a problem and you cannot finish it in time, and then the next day you have to focus on something
Mhm.
completely different. Can you really disconnect?
I think so. I think so. I think there's a difference between allocating time for deep work and having the little things that come up that you need to deal with. And so obviously, I'm really invested in my own products, especially Gummy Search, which is it's an active SaaS. I have a lot of active
Right.
customers that depend on me, and I'm going to be responsive to them. And so I'm always answering emails, and I'm always on Twitter chatting with other indie makers and talking to them about what they're working on and what they're using my tools for. But I find that if I am going to sit down and just do like a solid chunk of coding, of marketing, I plan for that, and I plan for that in my week, and I allocate it, and I make sure that I only really need to focus on one or two important things a day. And I find that in the long run, this makes me really productive, even though it's spread across multiple products.
This is super interesting. I think that this might be the best solution I found so far to solve the money problem for indie makers that are starting out. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing this with the wannabe entrepreneurs. And so
Of
you
course, if any of your listeners, wanna do something similar, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I've written about some of this on the Indie Hacker forums and on Twitter, so I'm happy
cool.
to advise people.
Yeah, and we'll share all of that in the show notes of the episodes. But let's get into the cool stuff. Let's get into Gummy Search. You said it's your main SaaS at the moment. What is your pitch? What is Gummy Search for people that never heard about it?
Gummy Search is an audience research tool for Reddit. It helps early stage founders discover online communities full of their target customers, discover what they're talking about, the pain points that they're expressing, the solutions that they're asking for, the times when they're discussing spending money or the alternatives for solutions they're looking for. And this is currently used as a tool by early stage entrepreneurs to come up with new business ideas, to validate business ideas, to find people to talk to about their pain points if they have a solution in mind, and for people to find customers on Reddit that are expressing the pain points or the needs that your business can solve for them.
Cool. I think a great explanation. Why Reddit? Why did you pick Reddit for this and not Twitter, LinkedIn, or other forum?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I get that a lot. A lot of people are like, "Hey, can you build Twitter? Can you build Facebook? Can
Yeah.
you build Quora?" I originally built Gummy Search as a tool for my own needs. So to kind of rewind a little bit, the other product that I have, which I know you're familiar with because you're featured
Yeah.
on it, is the Hive Index. It is a directory of online communities. At this point, I have about 1,300 of them. I got inspired by the indie maker community. I got inspired by the concept of online communities as a whole, and I started keeping a list of them. And then eventually that became a site, and I started sharing it. People liked it, but it's a free tool, right? And so I didn't, and this was early in my maker journey. I didn't want to spend any money on marketing, and my SEO hadn't kicked in at that point. And so how do you spread the word about a free resource when you don't have any money and you don't have any audience and
Right.
you don't have any SEO dues? And so I found all these people on Reddit that were actually asking for the same exact solution that I have. They were saying, "Hey, do you know any Slack groups for entrepreneurs? Do you know any Discord servers for programmers? Do you know any good communities on gardening, on parenting?" And I had this website that, and these individual pages that are exactly what people were asking for. And I recognized this in Reddit. This is a really good place to
Mm-hmm.
answer those questions. And so I started responding with my links, and it was driving traffic, and people loved it. People were receptive, which I know a lot of people are a little intimidated by Reddit of posting your own
Yeah,
links, but when you're actually answering the question,
it's
when you're
okay.
actually helping someone out, it's okay, and it's welcome. Yeah, and so initially, Gummy Search was actually just like a script for myself to spread the word about the Hive
Yeah.
Index. And then after using it for a couple months and just seeing the results, I figured, hey, maybe I'll release it to others and see what they think. And it's actually pretty crazy to see how the product has changed since I let it loose. Because initially it was kind of this marketing tool, right? And I kind of expected that people would be using it like I was using it. And some people did, but a lot of people were using it in different ways. A lot of
Okay.
people were like, "Hey, I'm gonna find my next business idea from this, or I'm gonna find out what people are asking questions about, so that I can write content, so that I can, answer those queries and get Google search traffic." And so it was pretty,
Cool.
insightful just to see what people were using it for, what people wanted, and then really
Yeah.
the product has taken, a life of its own since I got other people involved, which has been pretty
And that's
fun.
how you should build your product as well, right? So you should solve a problem with an MVP and then let your users guide you, right? And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people do is that they go into their dark room for months building a product that no one wants. And
Yeah.
one thing that I always advise people, by the way, is to use Reddit to validate their ideas. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something that I also have done. So if you have an idea, there's a subreddit about anything. So you just find the right subreddit for you, right? And what I normally do is I go there and I ask how they are solving the problem that I want to solve with my product, and I see their responses.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, if they answer or if they say like, "Yeah, I don't know how to solve it," or "I don't have any proper solution," then I think, okay, maybe this is something. Or sometimes they just give you already great competitors that I can use myself. Or sometimes it just doesn't have any traction, and which kind of can also give you some indication that no one really cares about the problem that you're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
So to audience research, I've always used Reddit, and I think it's a great tool for marketing. I've always, maybe because I always try to write my own posts. Sometimes it works really great. Sometimes you'll just get trashed. So you really need to
Mm-hmm.
to have a thick skin on Reddit. But yeah, definitely, I totally see the value of Gummy Search. And
Yeah. It's great to hear. And what you described about validating with Reddit, that's something that I've seen over and over again by entrepreneurs. People say, "Hey, I got my idea from Reddit," or "I got my initial traction. I found people to talk to. I found real opinions of what actually people think about this space, these competitors." And everyone does it, but Reddit's not exactly built for finding that kind of content. Reddit is built for scrolling, for discovering new things, and I think that's where I saw the
yeah,
opportunity to build a tool that is, using the same content on Reddit, but with an opinionated approach to find exactly what entrepreneurs need to help them in
right.
their journey.
So the way the tool works, that you can define certain keywords and it will like search through multiple communities and tell you where you can plug your product, or you can do some research on the keywords you're searching for, right?
Yeah, so there's by this point, Gummy Search is a pretty mature product, and I would say that there's different ways that people use it, but the very, very kind of initial basic version is if you have a certain audience that you want to discover. Let's say, for example, people that build Notion. You want to build some sort of plugins for Notion.
Right.
You want to tap into that that growing space. And so Gummy Search, within just a couple minutes, you type in, I want to create an audience of Notion users. Gummy Search will surface you the 5, 6 communities that discuss Notion, and you can really quickly save them to your audience. And now you can use that audience to dive into their conversations for pain points, their solution requests, or search for specific keywords if you want to search for the word plugin. But the idea is that it should be super easy to identify the communities that you're interested in, and then find the insightful conversations that help you with your goal at the moment. And some people use that to come up with ideas, and some people use that to set up track keywords to sell if they already have an existing solution. So it's a little bit of a different use cases for people.
And when you say communities, it's subreddits, right?
Yes, exactly.
What's the pricing model? How do you make money with it?
It's a subscription pricing model. So I currently have 2 paid tiers. One is just a starter for people that are early stage entrepreneurs looking to discover new business ideas, looking to discover communities and to figure out what they are talking about. And that's priced at something that I think is fair to indie hackers, people, pre-revenue, pre-idea sometimes.
What's the price?
It's $19 a month. And then I have the next pricing tier, which I call Pro. This is for people that have a solution that want to tap into potential sales opportunities. I want to track certain keywords related to the pain points the product solves, related to the name of the product category, related to their competitor names, related to their own brand. And so this is priced at currently $39 a month. And it's for a slightly different kind of user. I'm also building out a team plan, which I'm pretty excited about.
Cool. Yeah, it really looks like a mature product. Can you tell us how much money are you making?
It's still pretty early in terms of the revenue journey, and I'll explain why. But it's about a little under $1,000 MRR
Okay.
for Gummy Search.
Quite good. Okay.
It's good. It's Gummy Search is coming up on its first year birthday. I'm gonna be celebrating in June, and so I'm pretty proud of it.
Quite good, yeah.
Especially given the fact that I ran a lifetime deal promotion earlier this year, and so a lot of the Gummy Search customers, they're not MRR customers. They paid one bulk price, and they have access to the Gummy Search product for life. And so it's a lot more revenue, but not quite seen in MRR just a moment. But it's been a powerful force to get word of mouth, to get feedback, and now I feel like I'm in a pretty good position to scale up the recurring revenue.
Do you regret doing the lifetime deal?
No, not at all. It was awesome.
I was talking with Luca in one of my interviews, and he told me that it kind of regrets it a little bit, because in the end, with a lifetime deal, you are not getting engaged users. So it might be good to launch the product, but then they already paid once, and most of them won't care. Or they I heard that they exchange the lifetime deal between themselves, so they sell it. So he was a bit upset with that, but you think it's still worth it?
They do. The lifetime deal communities, they have a culture of their own, and it is pretty interesting. But yeah, I have no regrets. At least not right now. I had about 300 customers buy the deal.
Wow.
In total. That brought me about $50,000 in revenue over the span of 2 months. And I think of that as the seed funding or the pre-seed funding.
Did you say 50,000? 50?
50,000.
Wow.
Yes.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
That's really good.
In the span of 2 months. For a very, very early product at the time, I think my MRR was like 300 MRR. So I'm pretty happy with how that went, and it's also, as I mentioned, it's given me this amazing course. Yeah, maybe not everyone that bought the deal is an active, engaged customer, but I have so many that gave me so many good ideas that have spread the word. It has um, enabled my MRR, my subscription customers, to grow just from the force of 300 new committed customers that are invested in the success of the product. And so yeah, I'm excited for what kind of doors this has opened up for me, and I
Yeah.
have some fun things planned for Gummy Search this year. So it's been good, but I recognize that not every SaaS founder has the same feeling about lifetime deals. I did mine a little differently than most people do. I wrote about it on Twitter, and because I specifically ran a private lifetime deal where I sold the deal myself as opposed to using a marketplace like AppSumo or there's a couple of other ones, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
To be honest, you got me convinced as 50K. This is really absurd. I mean, I'm really surprised that you can get. It's
You know,
amazing. It's a way to
I
raise
was I
money.
was too. I was too, and especially what I mentioned earlier. I built this as a tool for myself, and the fact that people are paying me for it is sometimes I need to pinch myself, and because
Yeah.
it seems crazy.
And tell me about the MRR. You said lifetime deal aside, which I think you should consider it as well as at least for this year. You should split it by 12, and then your MRR would be much, much more, which is crazy. How like what I've noticed with my community is that it took me like 5 months to reach $100, and then 1 month to reach 200, and at the moment I am at 400. So it seems that it's kind of accelerating. I don't know if it will keep up or
Hmm.
not. Did you find the same that your MRR growth accelerated?
Yeah, in terms of overall amount, I would say yes. I think that in terms of I think about it, I track it more in terms of percent growth month over month, um, and that's, to be honest, that value jumps around quite a bit. But yeah, I think that is how it works. Is
Right.
how your MRR tends to accelerate and grow faster and faster. I think for me, during when I was running the lifetime deal for those 2 months, it actually dipped, which is pretty discouraging to see. But it was because some of my existing customers that did like the product, they were like, "Oh, I'm going to buy a
Yeah,
lifetime
of
deal."
course.
So they churned and then bought the deal. And so, but now since I ended the deal, the MRR growth is much faster than it was before.
What's your marketing strategy at the moment for Gummy Search? How are you collecting new users?
Two main channels. Number one is using Gummy Search to look for opportunities to plug my product, look for opportunities to plug my content. That's actually one of the things that I've been really enjoying is when I track keywords in the communities that I monitor. It's not just about uh, the category of software that I'm making. No one's talking about Reddit audience research, but people are talking about finding customers with an ad budget. People are talking about the struggles of coming up with business ideas, of validating the business ideas. And these are all things that I have some nice blog posts written about. And so most of the time, I am actually just promoting those blog posts. People are saying, "Hey, I have this solution. How do I validate it?" I have this validation, blog post. One of my favorite. It was one of my most popular ones, and I just help people find that content. They end up reading the rest of my posts.
Right.
They decide to try Gummy Search, and then go from there. So I would say Reddit is one of my two biggest sources of new customers and users, and the second one is building in public on Twitter.
Right.
The build in public community is amazing, as I'm sure you're well
Yeah.
aware. It's a great source of inspiration, knowledge, and then also customers. I think that's a lot of people are going down the same journey as we are and see the benefit
Yeah.
of using
Yeah,
audience
definitely.
research tool.
But this is very active marketing, right? I mean, you need to actively do it and share. How many hours do you put per way or per day or per week into this kind of marketing?
Yeah, so for Reddit, I spend 10 minutes a day.
10 minutes.
In Gummy Search, I Gummy Search, and it's built for this, right? This was the original use case, is to find the conversations where people are talking about things that you're an expert in that you can help out with. And so I just log into my Gummy Search and I see the certain amount of conversations every single day that I can reply to. I get out those messages and then I go back to work. And so that drives, even though it is active, I'm doing it. It doesn't take much time, and the payoff for those 10 minutes of investment can be huge. I had this, one Reddit comment 2 days ago that, got me 50 new users. It's just one Reddit comment, and then for Twitter, I know that some people track their time on Twitter. I don't really know how much time I spend on Twitter. Up to an hour a day of chatting with people and coming up with tweets. But I'm not as regimented about it as some of you are. I just when I'm going through something with one of my products and I feel like it's something that the indie community would appreciate, I just put it out
share
there
it.
and then
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah, but I mean, 10 minutes a day, it's quite impressive for Reddit. And especially if it brings you so much traffic, it's even something that you can easily automate. You can pay a VA or something to do that for you. That's why you want to build the team feature, right? Yeah. Makes little sense. One thing that I've noticed about your products, and this goes both for Gummy Search and the Hive Index, it's not super scalable, right? Like for instance, the Hive Index, I cannot submit my community, right? I have to send it to you, and then you submit it for me. And every time I want to switch something, I have to send it to you. Now we're trying to work out with the reviews as well, and you kind of built a form that then I had to fill in. And even with Gummy Search, it's also like this, right? I signed up and I got an email, then I think it went to a type form or something. So the process is not coded in the application. Why is that?
So for Gummy Search, I'm trying to make it as smooth as possible. And yeah, you do, when you sign up, you get an email, and that's my way of verifying your email. I don't want people continuously making new fake accounts with email addresses. It is a paid product, and I want to keep the free trial free. I think that if I'm not validating emails, people are going to abuse it, and then I'm going to have to take the free trial away, which I don't want to do. But yeah, you're right about the Hive Index. Is that it's not quite an engine that just like works, but I will say it's 98% automated, and hence why I spend a lot more time on Gummy Search. Is that really when you want to submit a community, you fill out the Google form. It has all the details. I get notified about it, and then I approve it, send it up on the site. I think that because it's a manually curated resource, I want to have a little bit of review before I put it up on the site. These are recommendations that I'm making, and I think that to be completely automated, where anyone can just put something up on my website, I don't know if I would go for that.
No, that makes sense. But why having a Google form and not like creating a sign up form in the website?
Here is an interesting thing about the Hive Index website. The Hive Index is a Google spreadsheet. That is the site. I wrote about this a little bit, but I basically have all the data in the Google spreadsheet. I enter it myself. It's super easy to modify. It's super easy to make new kinds of data, to figure out the relationships between them. And then I compile that into a website with the intent of programmatic SEO. And so it's a super, super simple website. And I like it that way. There's a little bit of that means there's a little bit of friction when it comes to signing up a new community. They need to submit a form, but it goes in the spreadsheet, and then I approve it, press the button that says deploy, and it's up on the site. But because it's simple, it makes it super easy to modify, to grow.
But I don't get it. So the spreadsheet is your database.
Yes.
And then how do you connect that with your website? Like, which stack are you using to?
I use a front end framework called Gatsby. It generates static sites. One of the things Gatsby does really well is it can use data from different data sources, being your code base, be your content management system, or being a spreadsheet, which I find it works for me, and I think it's the reason that the Hive index took me like 2 weeks to build. I decided to keep it simple and just get into the habit of launching something. I got really inspired by Peter Level's 12 startups in 12 months blog post, and I was like, you know what, this is a good idea. I don't want to overthink something. I want to go ahead and just get in the process of shipping something. And so I had the idea for the Hive Index. I started it with just 100 communities that I found in this same spreadsheet. I realized that a resource like it didn't exist. So I plugged it into my static site generator, launched it, and it's gone, since then. Now, if someone wants to submit a community, which goes in the sheet, all I need to do is press a button, and if someone wants to pay me, usually how that works for a promotion is someone will reach out on email or Twitter and be like, hey, I want to promote my listing. And all I do is I update a row in the spreadsheet, I press the button, and it's live. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, true. Even for a promotion, we tried out for a month the promotion. I messaged you on Twitter,
yeah,
and it's like, yeah, here's the PayPal link. Doesn't this take a little bit of the credibility to the website? Because as a community owner, when I see, okay, let me submit here, and then opens a Google form, I think, is this really serious? And then when I try to pay for a promotion, you say like, yeah, here's my PayPal link. It's like, I know you, and so and I'm following you, so I trust you. But I guess for people that do not know you, don't you think this might be a problem?
maybe, yeah. To be honest, I haven't been going full force with the monetization of the platform. I'm grateful to have a couple of amazing sponsors for communities, but really, I built the site so that people can find communities. I built the site for it to be a free resource for people to find a community based off their needs, based off of the platform, based off the topic, based off the features of the community, and similar to how I feel about the Gummy search thing, the fact that people want to pay me to promote because the traffic of the site has gotten to a point where it makes sense for people to promote. I think that's also a bonus. And personally, I love meeting community
Yeah,
founders. When people hit me up on Twitter, they're like, "Hey, I want to promote." It's awesome. I've enjoyed getting to know you, and
right.
the same with other
Yeah,
community
yeah, yeah,
members.
yeah.
And it's opened up opportunities to go on podcasts like this to meet folks. So it's at the moment, I'm not too worried about the friction, but maybe at some point I'll make it a little more streamlined.
I love how you pitch that now. How to turn out something. No, it's not a bug; it's a feature. I get to meet other people. That's why I'm in this podcast because of that Google form. It's like, okay, makes
Yeah.
sense. You also spoke about something that I think a lot of people made a lot of people curious, even when you spoke about it on Twitter, which is programmatic SEO.
Yes.
What is that?
That's just a fancy name for SEO. Really, SEO is SEO, but that's the idea of what I described with the spreadsheet. I have I have this data, and based off of this data, I can make thousands of web pages that are optimized for certain Google search queries. And that's how the majority of the Hive Index visitors find my site. It's not from me promoting it. I do promote it on Reddit when the opportunity comes up, and that was a great boost to my initial traffic and people finding out about it. But at this point, all of the 100 topic pages, entrepreneurship, software development, product management, all of those topic pages, they rank for various search queries on Google. Some of the platforms do, some of the individual communities. And yeah, programmatic SEO is just a fancy way of saying I make a lot of web pages, and those web pages do one thing, and that is, be optimized for certain kinds of Google search queries.
But what do you mean with making a lot of web pages? So do you mean like each community has their own web page in the Hive Index?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
okay. But I mean, you could do that with a database, any database, right? You don't need to use a Google Sheet for that, right?
That is true. I think that maybe more of the programmatic SEO part comes out in the topic pages. And here's an example. I have a page for entrepreneurship communities, and obviously those search queries that are optimized that I'm optimizing that page for, it's around people looking for entrepreneurship communities. But sometimes people search for entrepreneurship communities on Slack, on Discord. Sometimes people search for paid entrepreneurship communities, for entrepreneurship communities that organize, pairing, that host events. And the idea is that that is all data that I have in my fancy spreadsheet, and based off of that data, I can make custom pages programmatically that are optimized for those types of search queries. And so yes, you don't need, it doesn't need to be in a Google spreadsheet. I find that's what worked for me because it's really easy to modify and whatnot. But the idea behind programmatic SEO is that you're making a lot of web pages.
Yeah, makes total sense, and it's clearly working, right? Because you just mentioned that your main source of users to the Hive index is SEO, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And how many visits do you get per day?
It's not quite 1,000 yet, but let's
Wow,
see.
it's still good, really good.
In the past month, I've had 20,000 visitors to the Hive Index.
Wow,
Yeah,
it's
and I
really
have
just as mostly SEO.
yeah, and that's the past month. And in the past month, I've helped 6,000 people find 11,000 communities, which is inspiring. It inspires me to see that there's
Yeah,
6,000 people
that's
that were
amazing.
looking for some sort of community, and my site helped them find it. So I'm pretty stoked on that.
And what are they searching for? Are they searching for what kind of communities are they searching for
I think
mostly?
that most of the communities that I rank highly for are like entrepreneurship communities, on software development communities, some gaming, some crypto. Uh, yeah, and I'm it is a little hard for me to figure out what people are searching for versus what people are searching for and finding my site for, because there are certain pages that maybe there's not enough communities on it where they're not ranking as high as they could. But yeah, to be honest, at this point, I track what people are searching for, but not that intensely because there's so many different options at this point. The site ranks for thousands of various keywords, and like I said, it's mostly on autopilot. I just respond to the Twitter DMs when people say they want to sponsor.
Really cool. How much money are you making already from this live index?
It's a couple $100 a month.
Not bad. Really cool for something that you have in autopilot almost.
Yeah, I have some plans though.
Okay,
It'll change soon.
interesting. As a last question for you, or last topic here for you is, so I've already invited you multiple times to join the WB space, and you said that you've been in quite busy because you've been and you are a member of many communities already. What do you search for in a community?
It's a really good question, because I think that there's a lot of different ways that people leverage communities. Some people are just looking for people to hang out with because they're lonely and they want to find like-minded people. Some people use the online communities for learning from others, for figuring out what they should be doing with their business, especially in the entrepreneurial communities. Some people like using the online communities to meet people offline. That's been one of the fun things for me, is some of the communities that I've joined while I've been doing some of the travel that I've been doing have enabled me to like meet indie hackers in real life, which is pretty cool. And then some people obviously use online communities to promote their own business. Hopefully, it's in a way that's respectful. Yeah, I think that for the things that matter to me, I think that you know having people to bounce ideas off of, having opportunities to learn from people, having opportunities to meet people in real life. Those are the things that
Yeah. What are the top indie making communities that you know of?
Well,
This is
you
trick
know,
question. You know what to say first. No, I'm joking. Completely fine.
well, they're on the website, and I've met some really amazing founders and of online communities, and those are the ones that I promote. It's interesting. Before, obviously, there's some people that pay to have a sponsored listing on the Hive Index,
Yeah.
but I found that before I had the sponsored listings, it's those same communities that are the ones that I was telling people about because I've heard such good things about it.
Right.
I've heard amazing things about wanting to be entrepreneur space and just so many positive reviews. And so I would recommend it to people even before I met you. The same thing goes for Indie Worldwide, Anthony's community. I've heard so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
amazing things about that. That community also, at the time, it was called the Weekend Club. Now it's the Ramen Club with
Yeah. The
Charlie
Ramen
Ward. And
Club.
so it's the same couple of communities in the indie space that like
Yeah.
everyone's always talking about, and they were on my list. And when people would ask me, hey, like what communities should I join, I said, hey, you should check out these ones.
Yeah.
And it is
Yeah.
interesting. Maybe it's because of that you guys now have decided to sponsor, but I think it's more about the quality of the community and all the work that you do in maintaining it.
I think definitely the ones that you mentioned are the ones that catch my attention the most. Fed, thank you so much for taking the time to speak here with the wannabe entrepreneurs. It was a real pleasure to learn more about your own journey and yeah, how your approach to indie hacking. I think that's really interesting. You seem so relaxed, and that's not normal. So that's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you, Tiago. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the delightful conversation. And yes, I'm happy. I'm happy to share my journey and to, show what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me. Being relaxed and having a long term attitude, I found that works for me. Maybe from my past experiences. So happy to happy to share the journey.
Yeah, and I'll share your Twitter, Gummy Search, and the Dive Index in the show notes and the
Hmm.
blog post that we mentioned. Please send it to me so that I can also share it here for people to read. Everyone here listening, make sure to test Gummy Search because it's definitely the best way for you, at least to get a few first users in your platforms to do some market analysis. Reddit is the way, and Gummy Search can help you with that.
Thank you, Tiago. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
For the new listeners out there, you just listened to another episode of The Wannabe Entrepreneur. If you want to learn more from the journey of other indie makers, make sure to go to wannabe-entrepreneur.com and you'll find not only the podcast but also our community, WB Space. We are more than 60 members now, all indie makers supporting each other while building our own products. Besides that, if you want to support this podcast, make sure to tweet about it. And you can also buy our amazing WB merch. We have hoodies, we have t shirts, we have mugs, everything for you. And you can just go to store.wannabe-entrepreneur.com. All of these links will be in the show notes. This was another Wannabe Entrepreneur. See you next time.